Good morning, everyone. My name is Helena Elizabeth Racine Jackson, and I am 40 years old. I'm originally from Morgantown, West Virginia, which is all the way up here in north central West Virginia, 6 miles from Pennsylvania, 6 miles below the Mason-Dixon line, so I'm still a Southerner. But I mostly on weekends grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We were there a lot. So I'm the youngest of 8 children who were born from my parents. My parents were almost 40 and almost 53 years old by the time I came along. So my dad was in World War II, which makes me a little different than, I guess, your average 40-year-old, long generations. I also had babysitters, Pete and Elizabeth Ressiter, who were born in the 19s, and my grandfather, William Robbins Brown, was born in 1903, and those people were very influential in my life, which I guess is why I have an old soul. But I was also the baby of 8 children, so I'm very childlike. So it's just kind of a strange dichotomy there, my personality. So I just wanted to explain to the wonderful people of Living Hope a little bit about myself so that you all can get to know me better. I'm very interested in being a very active member of this wonderful body, and so I hope this short introduction will help you understand who I am. I believe it's very easy for a person to be positive during happy times, but that true character and integrity demonstrates during adversity. And so I wanted to discuss how I've dealt in the past with adversity. And bottom line is, I trust God. He has always been my Heavenly Father, no matter where I've lived in this world. In my youth, I was fortunate to be blessed with opportunities to live in Australia and France with host families. And during those opportunities, I was very blessed, but also struggled some, either with understanding culture or with language. But the beauty of faith and relationship is that God is the same. During the good times and the bad, during the beginning of time until the end, and regardless of where we live on this fine planet. The beauty of Him and of having a relationship with Him is that He is the same, whether we live in Kentucky or Pennsylvania, or whether we visit Switzerland or Honduras. We look up and we realize the beauty of His creation and His power all over this world. And so it's been very comforting for me during any adversity that I've endured. And I have struggled some. Without going into detail about personal circumstances that sometimes involve other people, I have experienced adversity with family relationships, with a marriage, and with childbearing. But simply God, the same God who became human and walked the earth in human form through Jesus Christ, has always been a rock for me and in control of every situation. So I just simply repeat daily the verse, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And so the bottom line is that I trust God and know He is in control. So let me give you an example of where I focus. If you've been there before, you know that Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania is an outgoing, fun-loving, sarcastic town. The type of culture where I grew up, it's very common to be kind of a smart aleck. And sarcastic. That's kind of the sense of humor. And so when I first read from the Bible Job chapter 38, I immediately identified with it because God actually answers Job with a bit of sarcasm. When I've been troubled and worried about a seemingly impossible circumstance, one that I don't personally have the intelligence or fortitude to handle by myself, I again read this amazing passage. The passage through which I first identified as a youth with pretty strong language and learned that God, not me, is in control. So read it with me. Chapter 38. Then the Lord spoke to Job out of the storm. He said, "Who is this that obscures my plans with words without knowledge? Brace yourself like a man. I will question you and you will answer me. Where were you when I laid the earth's foundation? Tell me if you understand. Who marked off its dimensions? Surely you know. Who stretched a measuring line across it? On what were its footings set? Or who laid its cornerstone? While the morning stars sang together and all the angels shouted for joy. Who shut up the sea behind doors when it burst forth from the womb? When I made the clouds its garment and wrapped it in thick darkness, when I fixed limits for it and set doors and bars in place, when I said, this far you may come and no farther, here is where your proud waves halt. Isn't that amazing? So through that as a young person and continually throughout my life, I've learned and identified through that passage the wonderful lesson that God is giving us through this beautiful, artistic, and sometimes frankly sarcastic prose, that we aren't in control. And that when we think we are in control and we begin to question His plan for our life, guess what? God responds with a bit of an attitude. And I just love it. And that speaks to me every single time. So as some personal examples, I can think of two pretty large life-changing events that have occurred in my life. During the first, I prayed over and over and over again. I said, God, if you want me to have this blessing, you will give it to me. And if not, you won't. I trusted that God is in control of that situation. God was in control of that situation. And so that blessing He gave me changed the entire course of my life. It propelled me into a challenging career as a general counsel, which I absolutely love. But more importantly, through that blessing, I met the talented and intelligent father of my children. The second event, which I want to share freely with those who may need it, I don't know that I can get through it, but I'll try. Maybe you know someone who needs this, or I don't know who could be watching this, but if you're 35 and want to try to begin to have children, it can be a little daunting. So, right off the bat, I had 2 miscarriages, boom, boom, right in a row. And I'm not proud of it, but during June of 2013, I became pretty depressed about this situation. And I thought, well, maybe I'm just not going to be able to have children. Maybe my body is not a suitable host. And although I've always wanted to have children, believe I will be an amazing mother, perhaps, that life path just isn't in my future. And so again, guess what I did? I went to Job. And I read it over and over. And there it is. Right at the end, at chapter 42, it says, Then Job replied to the Lord, I know that you can do all things. No purpose of yours can be thwarted. You asked, Who is this that obscures my plans without knowledge? Surely I spoke of things that I did not understand, things too wonderful for me to know. Through this I see that Job listened to God's strong words and allowed God to be in control of his situation. And so that's what I did. Just like Job accepted God's plan is greater for his life, it was greater than anything that we could have known. I try to do the same. From this passage, I too trusted God and thanked God daily for my children. For those children He would bless me with, whether they were adopted or fostered or, maybe just at church with me, I just thank God for them. I thank God for them every single day. And if it was His plan that children were to come from my body, I thank God for those also. And so in April of 2014 and July of 2016, God's plan for my life evidenced itself in William and in Eva. And so for those children, I have always been grateful. I loved them before they were born. So last, you may ask, why is that woman always smiling? What does she have to be so happy about? Well, I have an amazing relationship with the Creator of the universe. He is the same now and forever in the future. But most importantly, I'm not in control. And that just makes me so happy to be able to trust God to control my life. He knows all things, created all things, and loves us all. And we can trust His plan for our life. And that just brings me such joy. And so to quote my mother's favorite verse in the Bible, which is Psalms 1:18, verse 24. She repeated this to me almost every day during my childhood when I would wake up. She would say, This is the day the Lord hath made. Let us rejoice and be glad